Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, we had a awesome discussion on yesterday. Uh, George asked a question about the topic of water, and he opened that up and gave some understanding, and it turned into a discussion where everyone gave a lot of people anyway gave some input. uh, as far as looking at things from a spiritual perspective, and seeing what it means to talk about the cleansingness, being cleansed by water. Uh, we talked about it from the spiritual perspective, I mean, from scriptural perspective. George linked it to the river that flowed out of Egypt. I mean, excuse me, out of Eden. Uh, and a lot of other things said that I can't bring my mind to right now. But mainly, what we talked about is the shape and the use of water in a spiritual sense and how it links us all together. Uh, we talked about it as breath. We talked about the merging of water. We talked about again the cleansing portion of it. So a lot was said on yesterday that and as I've often said, I'm kind of bad at these recaps. So if anyone can think of something significant, please feel free to add on. But just use this time now for any questions and/or comments from anyone.
Good morning. Oh, forgive me. Good evening. This is George out of South Carolina. And one of the things that I learned on yesterday was, as it relates to water, certain cultures viewed water differently. The Mayans, they had a different perspective of water. Um, Genghis Khan had a different perspective of water. And if you go to your phone, your tablet, and say, what was the belief of the Mayan culture as it relates to water? It tells you. Um, Yet, in looking at water, I remember the lesson that Ron gave at the downtown facility of how water actually cleanses itself. And I believe Miss Barbara or Miss Autry or one of the young ladies stated that water is not reinvented, it just moves. And, how it comes from the Atlantic Ocean and finds its way into a pond, of how it hits a rock, cleanse itself. And I just thought about just the purpose of water. And the thing that I came up with is, in life, which is very much opinionated, you always got to stay moving. And when I look at water from that perspective, um, in my mom and daddy house, when it gets wintertime, we'll leave a faucet on because if you got a steady drip, your pipes can freeze up. However, if you don't have any kind of drip, you're asking for trouble. So I just associated water with, you got to constantly move out here, and you can't stay stagnant. And is it cool to rest, to recover? Yes. Yet you have to constantly keep moving, um, learning things, constantly keep moving to. Um, I got my truck driving family, and that's where I spend a large portion of my time with. However, there are people outside of trucking that I need to have conversations with. So I just look at water and apply it to me as keep moving. When you stay stagnant, you will develop an odor because if water is not being moved, water will give off an odor, especially water in the mop bucket. But as long as you're putting that mop in there and mopping the floor, you won't pick up an odor. However, when you let it sit, so that's how I associate water. Just keep on moving. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Yeah, you actually reminded me of something. I think someone on your side, a couple of times it was mentioned, about how you can and speak to water and change the properties of it. Uh, and we talked about the earth and the human body being primarily made up of water and how significant that is and how all of that links us together. Uh, a lot was said yesterday. But anyone else? Anyone else want to recap or give a thought of what you got out of yesterday or what you see, what was talked about?
Yeah, Ron. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay, I just did a little bit more reading on water and its effects, and specifically talking that was brought up yesterday. And some of the things I found is the effects of talking to water and placing those positive intentions. I think it was Kevin who was talking about being grateful for it and thanking it. Those positive intentions can actually change your health in your life. Since the water has a crystalline structure, so it acts like a recorder. Recorders have, anyway, I don't want to get into the detail, but it acts like a recorder. So your water holds memory. A guy by the name of Emoto is who we were talking about yesterday, who did the experiments on water, and he filled glasses with water, and he exposed them to things like music, to pictures, talk, words, those kinds of things, and then he froze the water. So he changed. It's still water, but it's a different state. And he looked at the crystals. And he did indeed see that the ice crystals were changed depending on what you exposed it to. So not only talking to water, but apparently even conscious thought affects water. And so we talked about that years ago. I think this guy years ago at Foundation, but I hadn't thought about him anymore until Audrey specifically brought him up. But she brought something up yesterday after Kevin had talked about talking to water. And so the thought is that when you expose water to positive emotions and ideas, etc., there's positivity on your health and the health of others if your intention is that way. But if you expose it to the feelings of hate or violence, it can cause disease potentially in your body. So we talk about things like speaking and saying and creating with words and thoughts. But there's merit to what we've been talking about in terms of that. The other thing is that the brain is bathed in water. I thought about that as George was speaking. The brain is, because of the body's high content of water, just like the earth, over 70%, the brain is bathed in water. And so it's a good, water is an excellent conductor. And so when we talk about vibrations and increasing the frequency of vibrations and our thoughts at spiritual levels or have a higher frequency, the brain and the third eye are literally able to. They are physical examples of that spiritual um, understanding of how the brain um, reacts or responds to all of that. So I just said all of that to say that I just thought it was fascinating that science, part of science, has almost kept caught up with what we've known spiritually all along.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead, boss. Well, thank you, my man.
Go ahead.
To piggyback off of what Miss Barbara stated, just the whole thing of positive energy. Every 2 years, I got to get a DOT physical. And I'm not the healthiest guy. I don't exercise, meaning I don't go running or walking or bicycle riding. My exercise comes through my work. And when I go get my DOT physical, one of the first things that I say when they take my blood pressure is thank you. I either say thank you, Dankeschön, which is German for thank you, Sosa, which is thank you in Chinese, and Ita, which is thank you in Latin. And I've never had to be retested or okay, we're going to let you stay in this room and calm down. So just by putting those positive energies in the earth, I want to be in a positive mind when I get in any of my vehicles. Because if I'm with negative energy, it can have an effect on my gas mileage. And the people who have asked to use my vehicle, I'm glad for them to use it because all of them got positive energy. If someone has negative energy, no access to my vehicle. It's not personal. You're a mean person. I don't need you in any of my vehicles driving it. You can be a passenger because everything has a memory bank. Once a person sits in that driver's seat, the car is going to recognize this is not the same person who's been driving this vehicle. So that's one of the things I try and implement. Always stay on that high frequency. Do I fall short of it? Yeah. But just that word thank you, just to say it, it's not a lot of cartilage that you have to use in your upper lip or lower lip. It's a very relaxing word. A couple of people who I know that have had strokes, the easiest word for them to say is thank you. So the positive energy, you're going to get results from.
Thanks, George. You've added tremendously to the conversation, to the discussion. Thank you. And that does make sense. You remind me of my affirmations that I kind of got away from. I was thinking about that when Barbara was talking about, she talked about rhythm. These are some things that we know that we may have gotten away from, but I never thought about that relationship with water. And I never thought about the vibrations and the rhythm either, the part that water plays in that, with your being in rhythm with the universe. So that all makes sense. George, did you have something that you wanted to add as well?
Yeah, no. Again, this is George in Philly. And again, I just wanted to just, mention about, the, importance of beginning, because in Genesis, 1, we were referring to verse number 2. And, and it says, and the earth was formless and void, and the darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. And as we have been, so blessed in terms of just the teachings that have been coming forth, it just, made me reflect on, the utterances that Barbara, has taught on, and again, the senses that ST and all of what has been said. And I think for me, it just came down to a point as we've gone through COVID and all of the things that are happening currently, that I just sensed that, it was just a time, cleansing was taking place, and it was just looking at water, not so much in terms of just water per se, but looking at the eternal waters, you know what I mean, from the beginning. And when we talk about the beginning, the Pangea, which was the makeup of the universe. And with Pangea, it wasn't like regular water, but it was the sacred water. And so when we talk about the sacred water, we're talking about the Spirit, hovering over the deep, and we're talking about the surface of the waters. And so I think a little bit yesterday, Kevin, kind of alluded to a little bit in terms of the science, not so much just going into it from a metaphysical standpoint, but looking at it in terms of that substance of neutrons, protons, the hydrogen. But at the same time, all of it was in that matter. All of it was in the sacred or eternal waters. And I think that in reading or just getting a better understanding from the Cushite and the Kemetic texts, that's what drawed me to wanting to, really, look at it, not just from the standpoint in terms of how religion, has talked about the Trinity. And I think that, again, as I mentioned yesterday, we talk about the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. But what does the water have to do with it? And I think that when we begin to see, when we talk about the original self-created Trinity in terms of the Nun, the Patah, in terms of the energy at rest, connecting with kinetic energy and motion, we begin to see how that concept came about in terms of the teaching of the Assyrian drama. And again, I just want to stick with the waters because that's the first aspect of polarity when we talk about the womb, or we talk about water, having its beginning. And so I think for me, or just for us, I think water played a vital importance. And I think that not just looking at it in terms of how we see water, today, in terms of drinking, but I think the eternal waters of that sacredness. And so, Rod, some way I just wanted to try to, look at it where we can have that discussion, because it was something that, was written that one of my mentees gave to me in terms of, again, sometimes the Creator takes us, it's just, again, I'm just so elated, just to have the discussion on the water. But what he was saying, that God does not, take us in deep waters to drown us, but to cleanse us. And so I think that there's a cleansing that's taking place. And I think it's all related to our discussions, and it's coming, to that, point of understanding that it's essential in terms of what water plays. And again, I'm not saying it how I really want to say it, but more importantly, I think that the waters have some significance part of our learning and teaching.
Thank you, George. Yeah, I every time it seems like we get on together now and we open up a new concept or something new. I see beginning. Every time we talk about something that we probably hadn't previously understood, or gaining a new awareness of. I won't say hadn't previously understood, but just gaining a new perspective on. It takes me to beginning, takes my mind there. as though we're birthing something, and we're getting an opportunity to become in sync, not only with what is being said, but what is those words putting us in sync with each other. And so that's why on yesterday I got off the phone, and I was just feeling elated, and it just just the energy from the conversation, and that's just an example of what we had just talked about. Uh, I think again it was Kevin or that talked about being in sync, and the rhythm of it all. And so yeah, I agree with you totally. And so anyone else, any other questions or comments on this subject? Any questions or comments about anything? Is there something that may have come to your attention, or any thoughts you may have on something that you've seen? I, for one, I think
Ron.
for yes, I'm
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead,
oh,
Shirley.
no, no. You were still on water, or you were going another direction?
We're still on water, but anything you want to talk about?
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't want to move. Well, I wanted to add, I guess, another layer of something that came to me a little bit later on yesterday afternoon. Um,
Okay.
so and as George mentioned, the metaphysics of it, and we did mention yesterday how the crystallization of the water changes, as Miss Barbara just mentioned. And we also mentioned that, or Kevin mentioned yesterday, that our bodies are very high percentage of water, more water than anything, which is the same thing for every cell in our body. And so there's a direct effect on just as the water molecule that is being observed, then frozen to see how it's crystallized. The water in our body is changed in the same way. Once we send those type of positive energies to ourself, et cetera, and that plays a huge role in health and sickness, you know, uh, in a type of way as well. And so, even to take that concept and to understand more how uh, we have a direct effect on our body just from our thoughts and intentions and desire. The same thing happens not only for ourselves, but also with others as well, who are also, of course, made of water. So, in a sense, when we encounter, individuals that we may deem as being confused, being mean, being threatening, or just even being at a low frequency or in a low place, themselves. We too, by sending them or seeing the sacredness in them, have a direct effect on them, because all of this water, as we speak of, is all connected, is all one in a sense. It comes from the same source. So I just wrote, seeing the godliness and sacredness in someone and or seeing them in a peaceful state sends energy to transform them in the same way as changing the atomic structure of water when loving and embracing it. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion as well for everyone. Well, not just add to the discussion, but um, for everyone to be part of with that. I'm finished.
Okay. Um, Shirley, you made me think about something. I was the other day. I think I told you guys I someone sent it to me. It just popped up on my phone, but uh, this thought, this that came up that said, guarding your thoughts and the feelings that you have about your thoughts is the type of energy. The feelings attack themselves. I mean, the energy attaches itself to your feelings. So I'm listening to what you're saying, and I water then can play a role in healing. Water can play a role in how you change your demeanor from being depressed to being, more uplifted. And so I'm listening to all that, and we talk about the properties of it. That if I can uplift me, can I uplift you as well without your knowing it? Can I? What effects do I have on the universe or someone else in a room, or just by affirming my beliefs and my positive outlook on life? I think it's another part of kind of the how tos, and it is again it's something we've kind of talked about, but we haven't looked at it from the perspective of water and what's actually going on in prayer and meditation. What in the metaphysical, I guess, part of what's going on uh, when you're doing these things, when you're having having these experiences. What are how much of that can you use to change other environments besides yourself?
Not only can we, but we absolutely do. Um, and in some situations, we are transformed by the energy of the environments that we may walk into. Just as we're also, and of course, this is what we're talking about in terms of being conscious of this, and at times switching our focus, from that of the physical and being more um, aware of the inner senses, and then from those inner senses and more awareness, actually having a bigger effect on these types of environments that we're talking about, in terms of like walking in a room where there might be, a bit of a tension, which everyone has perceived or felt before, I would say. It is not, of course, what you're seeing with your eyes. You could just feel it. And then, feeling that calmness and peace in the same way we're talking about showing admiration and admiring and being thankful for water, having the same type of effect. Another thing that I had was illness and suffering are the results of misdirection of creative energy. So, what we've been talking about with water, this is not something that we haven't been doing our entire lives. As we talk about creating the physical world, it's just something that we've been doing and not knowing that we were doing as it relates to, that misdirection I just told, we just spoke about.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's not intriguing yet intriguing about water is we give it energy just in how we talk. And I've heard this: you never know who's gonna have to bring you a cup of water out here. And by saying that, we give water some kind of degree of life. So water has energy, and the whole thing of the universe, which is somewhat opinionated, the universe has an anatomy, just like we as humans. It has a liver, got two kidneys, it has arteries, it has a heart, it has a spleen. I don't know how long the spinal cord is because the male spinal cord is 1 inch longer than the female. However, water just got energy, and it's just good to explore the significance of water other than to make Kool-Aid. There's something else there that water gives us. What's the origin of water? What does it go back to? It started in the pond, then hit the Atlantic Ocean, then hit the Gulf of Mexico, then hit the Atlantic. What's the origin of it? That's it.
Yeah, I'm listening to you talk too, George. I guess pulling all this together, the aha moment, or one of them anyway, that I'm having is seeing water as well as sort of being a conduit, something that allows energy to flow throughout the earth and from one person to another, or changing, attitudes and healing purposes, or learning to be one with it, and you being one with it, or using it or working with it rather, as a tool for change, for better, for healing, for growing yourself, as George talked about, the internal cleansing. I see that now. I see the possibilities of all that, and this not new. It just kind of opened my eyes in this discussion, and so yeah, I see that. I see how it the tie in with the eighth sense. I see that through the vibration now and the positive energy, and I can see where we're going with this. So, anyone else? Anybody have anything else? I love the discussion, but please feel free, anyone, if you have any other questions or statements or seen anything this week or last week, for that matter, that you care to discuss. Please feel free. That's what this is all about.
Oh, Ron.
Yes, ma'am.
Reverend Richards always told us that you could take a glass of water and the way your energy is, it can change the color of that water. If you like in a bad mood, if you hold that glass of water in your hand, it'll change colors by negative energy.
Yeah, I remember we had this conversation some time ago, Kathy. You're right.
Right.
And I think someone talked about that yesterday, changing the energy in the water. So yeah, it's just kind of clicking with me this time around. I guess I needed to hear it again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think what it is putting it together with everything else that we've talked about for the last several months. It's kind of hitting me a little differently. But thank you. You're right. Anyone else? Just to get off the subject just for a minute, and we're you have anything you want to talk about, or please feel free. But I'm gonna add this in, and it's really the same thing. This is what I've looked at is, seems like lately I have become highly sensitive to things that I see and feel. I'm paying attention to things more now, and I don't know if you guys are experiencing that as well. Uh, but seeing people hurt, seeing injustices, or appreciating things that you see a child do or something, or baby laughing, or things that just seem to be more colorful for me right now. Uh, and on the other side of that, I'm also noticing that it seems like a lot of violence is going on around us. And I think the feeling that I have is that it is trying to get our attention. I just wonder if any of you feel that way or not, or if you've noticed anything different about yourself and your demeanor, or your observations of things. And well, what are your thoughts on that? Is it just maybe me or my imagination or something? But what do you guys think?
Ron, this is Barbara. I see a lot of the violence, but what I find that's different with me now is I can't fixate or attend to that negative stuff too much anymore. I mean, it's I can't I can't allow my senses to be fed by that stuff anymore to the extent that I once did before. And so it's almost like, okay, I get a dose just to know what's going on, but after that, I can't take that continual feeding of the same thing over and over again, because I refuse to let that influence my emotions and my thoughts to the extent that it makes me depressed or it makes me feel low. No, it's a choice. And I think it was Shell who said something like, don't think about all of the stuff you see. I think when you talk about noticing a baby laugh or noticing, being the world, you said something about the world seeming more colorful. That's you having made the decision that you're not going to fixate on that other stuff. It doesn't mean we ignore it. It simply means that unlike what some people are doing who still are not aware of who they are, that's all they can think about because that's all they see and that's all they hear. But for us, we understand the bigger picture, and that's only a part of it. And I agree with you. It's to get our attention, but it's not to distract us. Because when we start, once it's gotten our attention, then we need to deal with it from the spiritual perspective, and not let it get our attention to the point that it begins to distract us and pull us away from the balance that we have to have internally. Because if I'm balanced internally, then whatever happens out there, I mean, I can deal with it a heck of a lot better than when I'm not balanced. And so, I guess learning to do that, to balance from that perspective internally, keeps you balanced as you see all of the negative stuff out there. I don't know if that resonates or not, but I did understand what you're saying and agree with it.
Yes, ma'am. And Barbara, I couldn't agree more. It's funny though. It affects me differently than it used to. It used to be a time that I would turn away from it, and because it would bring me down or it would make me angry, especially senseless stuff that I see somebody like the kid that killed his 20-year-old girlfriend, pregnant girlfriend. But it doesn't affect me like that anymore. Yeah, I feel the pain from it, but it's almost like, you're seeing this for a reason. You're past the hurting part and the anger part. You're seeing this now to do what with it. That's what I'm saying. And as I listen to everything, that's why I think the water kind of fascinated me yesterday and today. Is I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, all this stuff that we're seeing and we're understanding, what if we focused our energy, that same energy that changes the molecular structure or crystallizes water, if we know water is in the atmosphere all the time, and not just talking about the lakes and stream, but from the clouds and in the body, and it's like, okay, what can I do here? What positive thing can I do? What positive thing can we do if we all focus on the same glass of water? That's just where that's.
But are we not doing that and have been doing that? That's the issue with being able to affect what a storm does when it's coming at you, or that's the issue of being able to affect how women are treated. When we first started talking about misogyny and stuff like that, they had the first World Conference for women. So we are in effect actually influencing what happens. So I see us doing that to a very large extent.
Okay. Thank you.
What about somebody else? A different perspective of that.
I have a similar perspective in terms of knowing what we know now. This then becomes an opportunity to change those things. Basically, what we were talking about, to put it in practice, and to see that change. And so, even from what Ms. Barbara was saying in terms of seeing those types of events that you just named, also going, I guess, first starting off from, I want this to change, and then as soon as you get there and you say you want this to change, focusing on that change, focusing on what that change looks like, and almost as if you're getting lost in that, and to the point where the other thing doesn't essentially is not it doesn't have the same magnitude. So, for example, when you just mentioned that the guy who did that to his girlfriend, I think that was his girlfriend. So immediately that comes up, and then you just like, dang, that happened. And then, and I know you already do this because you talk about it all the time. I guess that guy, didn't realize who he was, or he was missing, love, or not feeling, love and compassion in his life, and not sure who he is. Okay. Start immediately sending, I guess, energy to him in the moment that he finds that. And now it goes beyond that he has that. And that you see others having it as well. And all the things that you're actually doing is you're changing how you view the situation, even though you started off from it being like a very sorrow of one, and then just focusing on what you want to see, and not so much saying what is missing out of the situation, but you're starting to see that which was kind of absent from the situation as being there, and you're just concentrating solely on that part. And it's kind of like a fine line because it's easy to concentrate on what's missing than to concentrate on what it is that you want to see there. But start focusing on that, or make it even an effort every time that you see something and it brings up that feeling in you. Okay, let me look at this from a different point of view. And even within yourself, you would have in a sense changed the circumstances of that thing right there with you, which we were just talking about, has an outward effect automatically. And then also that energy that you said you saw, for a lack of better words, the energy that you said you first saw, that's what everyone else is seeing as well. That's not the energy that needs to be out there. That is the energy that kind of perpetuates that particular situation. And so part of what we also talked about is what all we're talking about has been extremely empowering that lets us know when we become conscious that we can make a change, and we have the power to do so within ourselves. And so with that knowledge, it also, the more that we believe that, it becomes easier to do that, because it becomes easier for us to believe that we're changing that particular situation because we're seeing it in a positive light, or we are in a sense feeling what needs to be filled for that situation in a sense. Because remember, there is really no time in a sense where we're able to affect, and it's hard to see it if we're just focused on the physical world, but we're able to affect the past, the present, and the future. And so, like I said, once we believe that and do that more and more and practice doing that more, it will become easier. But there has to be, I guess, an effort to do so. And that's why I'm just making it conscious now. So now the next time or another time when this happens, you would automatically go that next step because you recall hearing my slow monotone voice talk about it.
Well, I appreciate it. I guess, yeah, I agree with what you and Barbara saying. I guess I'm seeing a different layer of it, and it's getting me excited. I really am all appreciating where we are right now. I really do. And yeah, thank you.
A part of what Sheldon said was when you change your, how you see something, that changes the situation from your perspective. But additionally, we all resonate in different ways at different frequencies at different things. And so when we see things from a balanced perspective, we are resonating, we are sending out energy. And when we send out energy, that energy is impacts other people, whether they understand it or not, or know it or not, or whether we understand it. I know we understand it, but because of our makeup, because of our connection, and because of the fluidity of the water and the spirit, of course, within us, when we feel balanced, we cannot help but influence someone else without even saying anything. Now, it can be even more helpful when we put words behind it, etc. But I'm just making a point that by being balanced within ourselves, we automatically impact other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing this. Thank you. Anyone else? Anybody else a thought or comment?
Okay. Well, Ron, if this goes for anyone, starting off if it's difficult or at first if it's found to be to be difficult to do what I just what Miss Barbara and I just mentioned, just simply tell yourself that this is God's creation. This is a sacredness. This is a sacred person, etc. Whether or not they realize it or not. But within yourself, just as we were speaking about that water, um, at the very least, if that's all you can do, if that's the simplest way to do it, acknowledge that, and then move on from the situation, or try to move on from the situation in terms of your thought. Like it doesn't have to automatically be, because all of us are learning and working on this, and part of this shifts over time, which all of us are in a different place in the ability to do this now than even we were once before. So if that's the only thing that anyone can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Thank you for your suggestions. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, Ron, I wanted to piggyback off, what Sheldon and Barbie just spoke about too. And I had an experience on Saturday, where I was just trying to refer to the sacred waters in a way that we can see it in the spirit. And I was, talking with a young man, who, was going through, an experience where, his tears of hurt basically, poured out of his body, out of his eyes. And the hurt was the fact that he never had his father in his life. And it was a situation where when you talk about water, or you talk about the tears of joy or the tears of sorrow or sadness, but I know that yesterday, Barbara, when you mentioned about mentoring, my thing is in terms of just the senses that we all have. But I think to be able to, appreciate listening. And when I say listening, in terms of, our third ear, it made me realize that, I can think that this is what someone needs. But what he really didn't need at that time and moment was not a job. He needed someone to just listen to him. Yeah. And I think what he was really asking for is, I want to really come to know me. And so I think that, when we talk about our senses and we can see it from the eighth sense, or that intuition, I'm beginning to even appreciate more that sometimes it may be through our third eye, or it could be our third ear, or it could be, the third, nostril in terms of smell. But I think that there's that releasing of water that's taken place. And however that might be in terms of how we come in contact or how we deal with people. But I think being sensitive, in terms of just being able to connect to that and offer a kind word, or not be so quick to give what you think that you feel someone needs, but really what they want is that connection, or they want to come into that true self of knowing that, I am loved, or I am someone that I need to understand this first, that again, resonates. Because as I say before, tears come in different ways. And I think being sensitive to that is what I felt, Saturday. And I was happy to know that the progress took place, because the person wanted to come back now and re-engage and it wasn't so much about what I thought that the person wanted, but what he really needed was that love or that companionship or that communication, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, George, and that's you know what we've been discussing. You were able to become one with him and recognize I don't need to tell him I'm gonna pray for him. I don't need to tell him anything, but he needs to listen, and you picked up on that. You picked on what his immediate need was, and that's it. That's primarily what we do or what we're supposed to be doing. I was also listening to what you guys were saying, and I was thinking about I makes me look at our breathing and meditations a little differently now. Still, talking about water, the moisture, the what's in the atmosphere, uh, and it's who you are. It's who we are. So we are becoming. We are becoming those prayers and meditations. So yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
That was very beautiful what you just explained, George. And I haven't always gotten that right. Um, but what it sounds like you did, for everyone else listening, is because we keep talking about awareness, and we starting off with the five senses, and then we start talking about the inner senses as well. And with the inner senses not just being in a sense connected to us individually, like this is consciousness that goes outward. And what I mean by that is you, as Ron just said just now, you in a sense merge yourself with that young man, not looking at him from the outside and trying to just hear with your physical ears what it is that he was going through, and then intellectually, telling him what you thought was you had decided yourself was the problem, but actually listening from the standpoint of not just your ears, but something much deeper. When you say your inner ears and listen, your third ear, merging yourself with him and making yourself him in a sense, to the point where, for lack of a better word, you set George aside and you put yourself directly in his footsteps, and well, in his shoes, excuse me. And then while doing that, or in doing that, being able to see and understand much clearer than if you had just remained on the outside and not put yourself in his shoes. And then once you had a more closer and intimate understanding of the situation and what he was going through, is when we say the phrase I feel you." And when we say that phrase lightly, we're actually talking about in terms of our heart, and we're walking with that person as if we were them. That's what it sounds like you did, and then we're able to, really help him for what it is that he needed, which is most important on this past Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm finished.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect. Go ahead, George.
Well, one of the things I'll suggest is that when you're on this spiritual walk, and Reverend Richard has stated this on several occasions, that the closer you get to the Creator, the more ungodly the Creator appears. So when you see something, be grateful of who you can process it with. 2 Sundays ago, when we were talking about the situation that took place in Uvalde, Texas, and we were just talking about gun and what it can do. One of the first things I started thinking about was Hollywood. In some cases, Hollywood will use a gun to show favor with one and emasculate the other. If you look at Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson plays Riggs. He has a Beretta. Danny Glover, who plays Murtaugh, and he started out as Sergeant Murtaugh, and through the series, he matures all the way up to Captain Murtaugh. He carries a revolver. I look at that's you're emasculating Danny Glover. If you look at Miami Vice, I called up my homeboy who was a Miami Vice fan, and we talked about it. And he said, "You know what, Quick?" And I ain't never looked at it like that. And he just said, man, because of Crockett off of Miami Vice, he bought a pair of Ray-Bans. Yet Crockett had a cannon, a gun. When he shot you, you could have flipped. Tubbs had a bodyguard gun. So be grateful that in your spiritual walk, you can call Rev up, process it with him. You can call Mr. George up. You can call Ron up. You can call Sheldon up. That what you see, be glad who you can process. And I'm glad I can process that with people who don't know nothing about the Isha, who ain't never heard nothing about feminine energy. So that's a blessing in itself that, and Reverend Richard has also stated, if you hang around a barbershop long enough, you will get a haircut. So these kind of lessons, just talking about water, you're going to see life differently just by talking about water. Because we do spend a lot of time in the energy of things. So whatever you're going through, be fortunate you can process it with someone, because there's some people out here, they ain't got no one to process nothing with. And they really walking around here mad at the world. And if they do process it with someone is minimizing their experience. And that's something that we shouldn't do, or I shouldn't do. Now, have I minimized some people's experience? Yeah. Yet, the way I am now, if someone calls me up and say, Quick, I need some directions, man, I'm happy. You call me and ask me for direction. That means I got a little value out here. So be glad you got people, or we have one another that we can process things with. And process does not always mean someone gonna agree with you. They may have a different perspective of it where they disagree with you. That's it right there.
Okay. Thank you, George. Thank you. Appreciate your perspective. Yeah, it all ties together. We I appreciate everybody on this line. It's all about growth, awareness. Anyone else? Questions, comments?
I just got a comment. I like to hear George had the George just finished talking a while ago. I like the way he just said, because if all these people who did all this shooting and stuff, if they had someone can talk to change their frame of mind, some of this stuff might not be going on like it's going on. But if sometimes everybody getting tired of seeing that, it hurts, and it hurts to the core. Most of the time, I think that when you get like that, you need to, start talking to the Father, because It's something in there he wants you to understand more than what the TV and stuff is showing. There's something in that he's trying to get you to see, because all tragedy is not, I'm not saying it's bad tragedy, but it's something for you to see. It's a lesson for you to see. It's a lesson for you to understand. And not only just for me, everyone, because it's getting hyped up so much now. Every day you turn on TV, that's what's happening. And I'm thinking, you need all of us to be on one accord about it.
And we are, so that's where we are now, and that's the appreciation that I have, and I'm sure everyone on this phone has, for what we do. The talking to each other, the learning, the teaching, the sharing of information, and because you're right about this. There is a relationship, a correlation anyway, between where we are and our place of awareness and what is going on in the earth. I believe that. So, uh, yeah, I appreciate everybody's thoughts and concerns on this. I do not think we're in a bad place, as has been said. Maybe, not in those words by everybody, but I think we're on accord the way we should be. I just want to make sure there's nothing that I miss. I appreciate who we are, and I appreciate this opportunity in the earth. I really do. I really like the Monday night sessions too, because it's usually like a Tuesday or Wednesday or something that kind of hits you in the face, and you kind of have to take a deep breath. And I even notice my response to those type of things are different than it used to be. You recognize who you are. You recognize that I see things now as things that happen to strengthen me, or to wake me up about something. Take a breath, a deep breath, and you move on. Keep going. But I appreciate these our lessons. Anyone else, y'all? We're not gonna stay on the phone just to stay on. It's at 7:15. And then no more thoughts or questions. We'll reconvene Saturday. You guys okay?
Yeah, I have one other thing that I was just thinking about related to this subject, and it's been said a lot of times before in terms of um, being we are more accountable now, and we have more of a responsibility. And as
Yeah.
you mentioned, Ron, and I too have found myself in situations, and I would have to remind myself. But when we say about responsibility and accountability, it's not, and not to say anyone is doing this, but just in case, it's not to say that it is a burden in terms of being responsible for the situation, but just flipping that same exact thing, that I can change the situation. One is, of course, from a position of this is what I have to do, or it's I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, or why I got to do it, etc. To that I have the ability, as if I have the gift to change this situation in the way that I wish it to be, and then going forward with all those things that we just talked about in terms of changing whatever that event or that thing is within ourselves, and then moving going forward from there. I'm finished.
Yeah, totally different frame of mind. Totally different way of seeing things. You say that, and I think that's a good place to stop. That that there is a something in scripture, a line in scripture that I absolutely love, and you just reminded me of it when Malachi said to Esther that if you don't do this thing, don't you know that God would have to find someone else? That I love that line. I love that. I just thought about that when you said that. So welcome the opportunities. Great discussion, y'all. And no more questions or comments. We'll bid you a good evening and everybody have a good week.
Thank you for you as
everybody.
well.
Bye.
Do
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.